Okay, let's call the meeting in order. The agenda was posted in the office of county clerk on the 15th day of May, 2020. Now it's sent to the West Bend Daily News, the Express News, WIBD, WBZ Radio, WTKM Radio, My Community Now, the Hartford Times Press, and the Kewaskum Statesman, and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Didn't the Express News go out of business?
They came back.
We have a quorum. Everyone is here. Begin with pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, the Zoom meeting, everybody gets fine.
Okay, first order of business is consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve. Supervisor Mary, Supervisor Schleif. Any changes, comments? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes. Discussion items, Property Tax Act 185. We talked about this briefly at the last executive. There's some additional information. County Executive Shulman.
Thank you. So we have a whole bunch of folks who know a lot more about this in detail than I do. County Treasurer Merton is with us and our Finance Director, Margie Hammers as well. Basically, what we need to do if we're going to do this is pass a resolution. That being said, there are a lot of moving pieces to this software program. There's a lot of moving pieces depending on what the individual municipalities do. There's a lot of moving pieces. And so quite honestly, I look at an inventory of what some of the other counties are doing around us. It looks like both Waukesha and Ozaukee counties are not planning to offer this.
Jefferson also.
Pardon me?
Jefferson too.
Jefferson too. Yeah, that makes sense. So at the end of the day, I think it was a nice thought by the legislature. They're trying to help people out. I think the administrative burden would be such that I'm not sure it's worth it, quite frankly. The other component that is aside from the pain that inevitably would be the county treasurers to work through would be there's a 10-day window between, I guess it's 11-day window, right? From September 20th to October 1st. We have to do our final tax settlement with municipalities on September 20th. That means anything that they were due in collections for taxes, we must give them by September 20th. But the final collection date is not until October 1st. So theoretically, we're basically floating everybody for 11 days. If everybody decided they weren't going to pay, it's like $50 million, something like that, right? That's not likely to happen, but it is enough of a concern that WCA has started investigating, creating a short-term borrowing setup for counties across the state of Wisconsin. Doesn't sound like anybody's going to take them up on it, but there's so many moving parts and pieces. Normally my reaction would be, yeah, let's give everybody a break and try to do what we can. But the way that it's been set up, I'm not sure that administratively it's worth your time. That's not to say we can't do it. We can do it. And if you feel strongly that it needs to be done, administrative burden be damned. I mean, we'll figure it out. But as county executive, I just look at it all and go, I don't know that you're actually doing much of anything except creating a heck of a lot of work for the county treasurer's office and probably a lot of profit for the software company I would imagine. Is there anything that I'm missing or differing opinion from either of you? It just doesn't seem like it's worth the effort. Are you hearing any other counties that have decided around us that have decided they aren't going to do it?
The list was up to date as of last Friday.
Oh, I think that's what I looked at too. So.
When this was proposed last time, I did question you on it.
And I did end up, I believe, seconding this to the next stage. But upon reading it, some of the misgivings that I had at that time now kind of come to fruition, and I can see, maybe it won't be $50 million, but depending on how the economy goes, and I said that if they see that tax date of October 1st, a lot of people will just decide to not pay it, wait till October. If the economy does go south, we end up holding the bag on the tax bill for all the municipalities. And that's just something that at the time I wasn't comfortable with. And now definitely am not comfortable with as just one component of this, plus the extra expense that we'll probably have to set up a program in order to make sure that we can keep detailed accounting of who's paid, who hasn't paid throughout the counties, throughout all the municipalities. Crazy amount of work from what I can see, probably going to cost us a bundle at a time when we can least probably afford it. So I would definitely not move this forward. I think it would be a very bad idea. And that partially from the misgivings I had last time, but now upon further review, it just gets worse. I think this is something that, like you said, kind of motivated by good intentions, but that definitely is not going to be a good time to do this.
Roger Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I read through the document that was presented, and it appears to me to be extremely cumbersome. And I don't know how you would legitimately explain this to the public as to what your taxes are due here now, but you really don't have to pay them until now. And it's just like a domino effect. What we do here is going to go down to the villages and the other municipalities and townships. And I can't imagine that there can be anything positive come out of moving forward with this.
Yeah, I think what the legislature was trying to do was look at it strictly from the taxpayer perspective and the tax collectors kind of be damned. And in fairness to them, they did attempt to modify the law a couple of times. Initially, there was going to be a need for, I think one of the original drafts, for the counties to settle up everything on August 20th and still wait to October 1st. I got, what is that, 45 days? Where you're sitting, floating all the municipalities. But anyway, so the legislature attempted to do it. Again, I think they were focused from the perspective of the taxpayer, which, apparently 99.9% of the time, I used to think it was 100% of the time, but 99.9% of the time I agree. In this particular case, they made it such that I think it's going to be such an administrative burden. I actually worry about it trickling down to the taxpayer in the long run, because if we approve it and one of the municipalities doesn't, there's an issue of penalties and fees, right? On that one municipality versus the other 20, and keeping track of all of that. I mean, it's just, I'm normally the guy that says, if you want to meet in the evenings, damn it, we're staff, we'll do whatever you tell us to do. But this is one of those where I'd love to say, yeah, we'll push off people's tax due date until October 1st. I just think it's going to create a giant mess. And then from an organizational standpoint, I think it's too cumbersome.
I think, to follow with Dennis, we have good intentions, but we have unintended consequences. And looking at this, if you're weighing, the pros and the cons, pros are way down here and the cons are way up here. So to me, it doesn't look workable. I mean, unless everyone falls in line, and that's ifs, because we have to pass it first, and then assume that all the other municipalities are going to pass it too, so they can be sort of kind of uniform. So, but Chris is first.
When I looked at this, I can't disagree with anything you said, Josh. And in fact, I totally agree with you. It's just, when I looked at this 1.5-page document, it was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I think the public needs to realize that. And as well, the other document that was provided to us indicates that we're not alone if we do not pass such a resolution. It appears the majority of counties within the state are also saying no to this, so I think that's the way we have to go.
Yeah, that was my point too. When you look at other counties, nobody's passed the same thing. And the fact fiscally, we could be on the hook for money. And the businesses might take full advantage of that with hard times now. So
Yeah,
we're opening a loophole. And again, I read this too, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it. And you go back and, what did that say? So I wholeheartedly agree that we should not go forward.
Right, wow.
Thank you. As one who is not afraid of taking a unique path, I'm looking at it from a perspective of it's easy for us to sit here and look at that and say, well, we might be creating a problem, but there's a lot of pain out there. And you already have over 4 million mortgages that are upside down in the United States. That number is continuing to grow, which makes me a little concerned as regards to people not being able to pay it. Now, the interesting thing is too, the generosity of the government in printing our money and giving everybody $600 a week not to work besides their normal unemployment. I kind of scratch my head about that one. However, that's supposed to end July 31st. So as of August 1st, and when this is actually going to start kicking in, that $2,600, 24 plus you have a little bit more than 4 weeks, about $2,600 a month for all the unemployment is going to stop. And I can understand why it can be confusing. I can understand why folks would wring their hands and worry about, where they live and what their government is doing. And, well, that's true, but that's when you call up your alderperson or your town or village supervisor and say, hey, this is really impacting me, and you actually get involved in your government. That's what government's supposed to do. It's not always supposed to be tidy and convenient for everybody. Sometimes we are going to march to the beat of a different drummer depending on the circumstances within our municipality. So I'm more interested in looking at this through a different lens than what's being expressed here, and that is to understand that none of us are hurting like a lot of the other people are hurting, and there are a lot more maybe than some people recognize. So I know this is inconvenient. I know it's not neat. I know it's not pretty, but government rarely is, and I would be remiss if I didn't speak my piece and say this is something I think that should be considered by the board.
I didn't see this in the material provided. Do we know how many people have already paid their taxes for the year? Like mine, I pay installments with my mortgage every month. They pay it at the end of the year. Do we have any of that data?
how many, it's not that simple because you're talking about people who split their payments versus people who pay all of it.
Yeah.
And you're talking about businesses and citizens, so it's
Right.
not, and residences. So it's not that clean. I don't know how much it is overall. You know how much we collect total? Well, that is even hard to say because municipalities do the first portion, right? So the municipalities, towns, villages, and cities collect, that make the first collections. That they do that in December and January. They settle out once in December, they settle out again at the end of January, which really has to happen by February 20th. Is that right? And then once that's done, all tax collections get transferred over to the county treasurer. Okay. So a lot of folks happen to pay in the month of December because they try to, at least they used to try and do it for their income tax. Some of that still happens because of historic precedent. So it's hard to say. What we do know is that roughly $50 million is what we're talking about. And all the software components that I talked about, truly, yes, those are the inconveniences. To me, the straw that breaks the camel's back is we don't have $50 million, in cash. So this is exactly why the Counties Association is saying, we'll help create a short-term borrowing fund for you. Well, nobody knows the answer to the question of how many people are gonna take advantage of this. If you told me it was 10%, I don't quite look at it as a pro, the cons weigh out the pros that much. I actually think the pro is, as Supervisor Mahalik said, you're helping the taxpayers who are hurting. But there's so many, like death by 1,000 cuts cons, that last one of how much money does the county actually have to do this? Is so big that I think you're putting, if you decide to do it, you're putting the county organization at a risk, and I can't explain to you what it is, because I don't know that anybody knows. So,
right now, we still have about 50 million in outstanding taxes that need to be paid.
and I couldn't tell you the exact, because either of you know how much we have.
Because it changes every time somebody needs payment. So, but that gets us in the ballpark for what's outstanding.
Right, but generally speaking, and Gene, correct me if I'm wrong, people don't pay their taxes in the middle of, like right now, they're generally waiting until July 31st, right?
Yeah, the big push is the last 2 weeks of July. That's where the bulk of the money usually.
Which went to my previous point. You give a person to October, they're gonna take till October. And by that time, depending, excuse me, how the economy goes, they may not have the money in October. You know, I mean, people are probably hurting now, I agree with what Mr. Mahalik's saying, but in the future, it could be much worse. At this point, we have no idea. Right? Which is one of those 1,000 cuts.
Right, so we talked about, do we narrow it down and make it specific? So that, I mean, one of the options is you can say hardship on a case-by-case basis, so now you're really trying to narrow down to who's actually got a hardship. Well, can you define that for me? And basically WCA's legal counsel says, don't do that, because you're gonna get sued for being unfair to people and inequitable. So again, if you tell us we've got to do it, I mean, we're certainly going to do it. I just think that it's so unworkable and it's such a risk for our organization. Everybody is in a tough spot. I know, I agree completely. I don't know that the answer is to put the county in a tough spot as a response.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Josh, have we had any feedback, and perhaps Supervisor Mahalik can answer this question, have we had any feedback from any of these other municipal governments saying, yes, do it or don't do it? I mean, obviously, they'd have to know that this is being discussed. Has there been any feedback at all saying, boy, this is really gonna hurt us, or hey, do what you gotta do?
I don't recall from the municipalities.
This came from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, and it got hijacked by the Counties Association because it was so unworkable, but none of our municipalities have said. School districts are very concerned about it because they don't get their aid payments until they're basically, what happens for school districts is they're largely aid funded, but that doesn't come until the beginning of August, so that pays all the things that they had to pay, and then they have no money now until their next aid payment. So they're accounting on that August 20 money.
So the problem that will exist for a school district, having been a school board president, is we will only partially settle out with them on August 20th. So whatever we have remaining in collection, donuts in the afternoon would be weird, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever we would be owed remaining to the county would then be proportionately paid to them in September. What that means to a school district is, we're not giving you all your money until we get all your money. When that happens, they're already in a situation where they're short-term borrowing. That's just the nature of how their cycle, their fiscal cycle works, which is what Ethan was trying to explain. Now they're gonna have to do more short-term borrowing, and oh, by the way, if we do this, we probably end up doing short-term borrowing. So again, I think it becomes a question of, people are definitely hurting. It's inarguable. Do you want to put the county in a situation where then, well, we'll also hurt because you're hurting. I don't think that's a good idea, especially an organization whose job literally is to take care of those in need of the social services who are probably the exact same population.
Just in comment to that, you're saying that the county shouldn't be hurting, but if we're going to hand this off, that it's going to be voted by municipality. And I'm not necessarily saying that, specifically Hartford is going to be for it, okay? But letting that control, because it originally came from the league, be on the local level. I think you just said, I think what West Bend is not going to do it. So there's your largest population.
But the problem with this whole process is, if the county says yes and sends it to the municipality and you say yes, of course, you'd be nuts not to say yes at the municipal level. It's not your money. It's the county's money. You're literally playing with the county's money. So yeah, of course you're gonna say yes. There's no downside. They'd be nuts not to say yes unless they don't understand it. And that's the bigger risk, because we have 20 municipalities. We literally have to explain it to all of them. And if there becomes an issue where interest and penalties aren't charged or are partially charged, or somebody starts playing a game, now we've got real issues. Again, I said, my feeling is all of that interest and penalty stuff, the software changes, that's manageable. What isn't manageable is if we all of a sudden owe $50 million on September 20th and we got to float that for 11 days, we don't have that money.
But that's I mean, are we really going to use the example of $50 million? This is everybody doesn't, just like how many people filed before April 15th on their income
You
taxes?
think
even though it's
Cabela's is gonna
extended?
pay their property tax bill on August 20th, or on July 31st, when they know they can wait till October 1st? I mean, when does the line, when you find out you don't have to pay, I mean, the only reason that people don't pay prior to July 31st, and you see a line out the door, literally, is because they want every single cent of interest they can earn. I get that. Now we're gonna literally be telling them, publicly saying, you can hold it for another 2 months. Why wouldn't they do it? So I'm saying to you, I don't know the rest. Let's say it's 10 million. We're gonna take a $10 million hit for 11 days, not knowing, and we know we won't get some of that money back.
If I can continue, Mr. Chairman, just to go, because so many people take their property taxes and escrow them, like Supervisor Bossert mentioned, and the banks are set to make those payments. Do you believe that the banks are then going to suddenly start doing the shift from the software that they already have in place and the plans that they already have, that all these people who escrow are now going to see their payment made 2 months later, or would they just go with the regular flow? So, and so many people do that. I mean,
If I were a banker and I knew what was going on and I could modify it, would I want the money to sit in my bank for a little while because I'm the one who gets interest, not the escrow payer? Yeah, damn right. Will they do that? I don't know. But I mean, it's free money for them.
Unintended consequences.
Right, that's the whole problem. Could it be 10 million? Could it be 20 million? Could it be 50 million? I don't know. And then you combine it with all those other things, it's unworkable.
why was the law passed?
Pardon me?
Why was this passed? Or what?
They were trying to do exactly what you described. I think the intention is spot on. And I was texting back and forth with one of the reps in leadership trying to say, this, you don't understand, this doesn't work. You clearly don't know how the money works. And we got it to September 20th and they just would not go to October 1st. I don't know why. I don't know why they wouldn't pull the other date back. I'm not sure what they were trying to do. All I know is they were trying to help the taxpayer in the long run by making it so unmanageable. That's why so many counties are just saying, you know what, we're not doing it.
I think probably should do it.
Well,
That's what I kind of said.
Gee, thanks. That's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I would motion, sure if I can do it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I would motion to table this.
It's a discussion topic. We don't
It's a
table
discussion.
anything.
There's no action.
I don't want, I mean, I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah.
I just flat out.
We can just get a general sense that we don't want to move this forward. And if that's the executive committee's decision.
It's not unanimous.
It's not unanimous, yeah, so. So this dies on the vine. It's unworkable, it's unmanageable. It's
Possibly dangerous for our finances.
I just want to put county at the risk for something that. Okay, moving on. Action items, ordinance amendment to move Parks Division and Parks Commission from Public Works Committee, to Land Use and Planning Committee. Pretty straightforward. Anybody want to speak to that, or?
Did you want a motion first, or would you?
Yeah, why don't you, yeah, because that is the action item. Motion, sure. And second by Supervisor Boston.
Thank you. On section 9, and this is starting on page 11, it's 9(6). You realize that this will definitely, and I just want to make sure that it's spelled out, and maybe it needs to be more specific as to how it's spelled out. Firearms, except as authorized by law or regulation, which I'm assuming is to carry, but I'd like to mention, to carry, keep or use any firearm, bow, arrow, slingshot, trap, gun, or other shooting device upon such public grounds. Prohibition does not apply to special archery events permitted or authorized. Obviously, I know it says it's authorized by law or regulation, but then it immediately hits to carry. Is there any way we could be a little bit more specific that those of us who carry a concealed carry permit are not subject to any regulation that would shut this down? Because of course, the concealed carry law is very clear that state and county and municipal parks are open to concealed carry for those individuals who carry a lawful permit.
All 7
Oh, no. No, there's no. They have to post it, they have to pass it through their thing, and you can be stopped in a municipal building. Of course, Hartford being the first municipality in the entire state to clear concealed carry to every one of their public buildings. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yes. If you want us to bring back a rep or an ordinance that addresses that, we can do that.
I just want to make sure it's real clear that concealed carry is permitted in county parks. And if you read that, then you're not really sure, by law, and then it immediately hits to carry a firearm. It's like, oh, wait a minute.
Sure.
If we can just make that a little more obvious that those with the concealed carry permit are lawfully.
Obviously, this ordinance is very specific to changing from the who's reporting. Who, but we should come back with an ordinance, so I use the planning committee that goes with this.
I got
Does, excuse me, there's a gun range in the Heritage Hills Park. Is that only for sheriff's department use, or is that open to the public? Is that, we have to deal with
I
that?
would love
I'm
to
out.
address that. I would absolutely love to.
It's just for the sheriff's department and other law enforcement agencies. at this point. There's been discussion about opening it up.
After $600,000 spent on the tax money, thank you.
It's something we could probably bring up at
Sorry.
public safety meeting, get on the agenda.
So make sure that gets on.
That's where we're going. So,
But then we'd have to revise this a little further to make an exception or such. Thank you.
Public safety, or wouldn't that be?
Huh?
Why would it be public safety?
I would think it should go to the sheriff's department, that's the sheriff's department. For regular, I would believe. Would be regular.
Probably so.
At least that's where I think it was.
I mean, I don't know what the sheriff, it's covered under state statutes and stuff like that. It was pointed out. So then I would think
But I mean, if you're talking about citizen use of the facility.
if it's it's not the sheriff's facility. I mean.
Oh.
Don't tell the sheriff that.
Well, it belongs to the county, therefore the people. That's not.
There's a different sheriff now, so
There's a new sheriff.
there's a new sheriff in town, so we may be able to address that. There's a lot of liability issues out for the county. There's a lot of things that, other moving parts to it that we have to really figure it out. But yeah, it's something we can put in.
Well, I'm not suggesting you necessarily do, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't seem like that.
Getting off topic here.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we are. Okay, back to the ordinance. Is there any other discussion on the ordinance?
Just a quick question. So this is really basically just part of the alignment of the committees?
Yeah.
Is that all we're really trying to accomplish here?
Yeah.
Just to share the workload. I mean, I imagine Public Works is probably pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's trying to get so that we report to one committee rather than having to report to two committees. The same
There's a
thing.
little cross synergy.
Yeah, I
going
get
on
it.
there.
I get it. I see, I sit at all the meetings, so I get to hear the same presentation. From Public Works first, is always first, and then Land and Planning is next, so I'll hear the same presentation.
It's really lining up the operational, the organizational chart for the operation with the organizational chart for your committee structure. Jamie Ludovic is the Community Development and Relations Director, in charge of all the land use and planning departments that report to that committee. If you move parks, then it'll be all of her reports. Public Works will have Scott Schmidt, the Public Works Director, all of his reports will report to Public Works. We have one more cleanup that'll come a little bit later, and that's child support. Child support reports to Brad, and therefore will come to this committee rather than Human Services Committee. But it's the same concept. It's the one-stop shop. My hope is it makes it easier for supervisors. They have one person to talk to, one cabinet member. Supervisor Mary can go directly to Jamie with all his questions about land use and planning stuff. Same thing down the line, both directions.
I agree. I fully support this. In the last 2 years, when I was chairman of land use and planning, it always made me wonder why we had the golf course and we had nothing to do with the park.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on this. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Next meeting date, June 17th, 2020, at 4:30 PM.